I'm Eric Boehm. I'm Curator of Aviation here at the Intrepid Sea and Space Museum.
My name is Peter Taraka. I've been the manager of aircraft restoration here at Intrepid for 7 years. The past couple of years, I've been focusing on this machine behind me, the Skyraider. It's taking up a lot of my energy. It took us 2.5 years to completely finish this restoration.
When I first arrived here, I looked at the airplane collection and noticed that there was airplanes that really didn't belong here and a few airplanes that are really super important to Intrepid history that were not here. The Skyraider was almost #1 on my list of things to find.
We acquired the Skyraider back in 2014.
The curator at the National Museum of the United States Marine Corps, Quantico, Virginia, calls me up and goes, "I got a Skyraider for you, but," and the but was, it needs a lot of help. It's an older Skyraider. I didn't know how old at the time, but they had one. It was in very poor shape. It was in neglected condition, sitting outside at Naval Air Station Oceana. And the thing was essentially an outside display in a park. And so the lawnmower guy kind of had his way with it, but I just didn't care because we needed a Skyraider, and Skyraiders are very hard to come by. So when one popped up, I really didn't care if it was coming in shovels and boxes full of parts. I wanted that Skyraider, and what we really got was a diamond in the rough.
I accompanied the team that went down to Virginia to disassemble the airplane, and I was somewhat impressed with the good condition of the internal structure of the airplane. Outside of much superficial damage on the exterior of the airplane, the primary structure was still intact.
We had kind of developed a little reputation here of taking care of our stuff. Being in the New York City environment, it's just really harsh on airplanes and hanging out into salt water and things like that. So we had to come up with some techniques and some processes of our own. When an airplane arrives here at Intrepid that has been neglected as this one was, the first thing you have to do is just kind of look at every square inch of it. And that's inside and outside, and assess what we're dealing with. How much metal do we need to replace? What needs to be rebuilt? Some of the first damage that we noticed was on the trailing edges of the elevators and on the flaps and on the ailerons. The cockpit has been gutted out and there's no canopies available for airplanes of this age. And we also have to look at historically what the airplane's appearance was when it was flying.
We replaced the tail wheel. We fabricated a tail hook. We replaced many of the panels on the fuselage. One of the biggest jobs was replacing the forward fuselage access panels, all 3 of which needed to be fabricated.
We did remove about 200 pounds of bird nesting material out of the engine cowling.
But the end result makes for not just a beautiful product, but a product that is properly sealed against the elements.
And here we are. Now it's received that help and it's ready to roll out. We save everything we cut off the airplane, the original fabric of the airplane. It's the original thing, and you don't want to just throw that in the trash. And so we do down below deck in our storage area, we have boxes and boxes of airplane parts that are completely unusable, corrosion and rotted away and bad, but we saved every bit of every airplane that we remove a part from.
Without a doubt, my favorite repair was that forward fuselage access panel. I learned a lot about shaping the metal, new processes, trying it a couple of times and then saying, no, let me start over because that's not right.
The work we do here, I have to look at that through different lenses. The first lens is the preservation of the object. It's a historical object and it needs to be preserved, yet we're in a very hostile environment. The second way to look at it is, what are the visitors going to learn from it? This is actually now a teaching tool. The education department, tour guides and such will now use this airplane to tell Intrepid stories, to tell Skyraider stories. And then there's maybe even the most important part, is preserving the legacy of the men that flew it and the men that maintained it. And then it all kind of rolls in together. All those things play off each other.
Intrepid served 3 tours of duty in Vietnam. All 3 of those, there were squadrons of Skyraiders on board. Various parts of the ship contained spare parts for all the airplanes that would be serving on the ship. I'm not sure who it was roaming around and found a pristine, new old stock tail wheel for a Skyraider. And we acquire a Skyraider that is badly in need of a tail wheel, and boom, we have one right there ready to go.
This is probably one of the oldest Skyraiders still in one piece. And it's really not originally built as a Skyraider. This was built as an XBT-2D Dauntless 2. This is one of the prototypes. So when we consider this airplane, should we paint it up to represent one of the many, many Skyraider squadrons that served on Intrepid? When we considered that this airplane is one of the prototypes, the oldest Skyraider still in one piece, the only way to really refinish it and display it is in its original rollout markings.
We are also familiar with what is required integrity-wise for airplanes to live out here on the flight deck, day in, day out, exposed to high winds, storms, blizzards, both structurally and appearance-wise.
What am I most proud of? Well, you know, I'm proud of the team that's in here.
This project would never have reached this level of completion in this time window without copious reinforcements. Most of the effort that went into this restoration was done by women. And this seems really appropriate to me because back in 1945, when this airplane was first built, women were the workforce in most of the aircraft factories in this country.
So taking on a project like this is not cheap, and what has been really, really important is our institutional advancement department. They have been absolutely essential in finding those people who care about this airplane, and it's not necessarily the pilots or the ground crew or the, you know, the men who flew it. It's even their families. And there's some great stories of some families involved that want to honor Dad or Grandpa and his connection to this airplane, and those people have stepped up.
It's a bittersweet moment, but it'll be great to see it out on the flight line. As wonderful as this project is, and as happy as we are to have a Skyraider on Intrepid, there are a number of airplanes in the collection that are ripe for some TLC. Next up are two of Intrepid's helicopters, the Sikorsky H-19 Chickasaw and the Bell AH-1 Super Cobra.
Well, the wish list still has some things on the list. The F6F Hellcat, an F4U Corsair are right on the top of the list. Those things are going to be very hard to get. They're even more rare than Skyraider. So finally getting a Skyraider on display on the deck is not the end of the story, it's just a story. And it's great to have it here. It fills that void for us, but there's more to tell. There's other airplanes and helicopters to acquire and to keep telling those stories. So here at Intrepid, it never ends.